Hi guys, welcome back to My Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. So already quite important, big call to action, subscribe down there. And if you feel that what we are doing here makes a difference for someone out there, then spread the word and just send messages out to your friends and say, hey, there's this strange dude there on the internet who actually talks to people and sort of tries to make this world a little bit of a better place, one interview after the other. And so spread the word, guys. Maybe we can make this world actually a little bit better. But today, another day for an interview. I've got Kat Caldwell with me. Kat is an author and a creative coach who is, in her own way, mastering this life and going through a journey that is so empowering and beautiful that I had to have her on my show, because it is, we want to learn from people who have been there, done that, and were in very dark places. And I'm dead excited to have Kat on my show and learn together with you guys from her what worked for her and maybe what will work for some of you. So, Kat, thank you so much for coming on to my show.
Oh, thank you. What a beautiful intro. Thank you.
Oh, Kat. Kat, what we will talk today a lot about is family harm and violence towards children and towards weaker people. And I want to put already right now, I want to stop the interview and say to you viewers and listeners out there, if you're listening into this podcast or watching this YouTube on your phone very quietly in a place that no one can hear you because you're worried about your own safety and worried about your own situation or the safety of your children, please stop right now. Think, where is a safe place that you can go to? Think who you can call. Think how you can get out. It is so important that sometimes you just need that realization. And maybe right now is exactly the time for you to make that step to seek help. If you are stuck inside, especially now with COVID in the United States or in other parts of the world, other things can happen to you too. For example, you could develop a tummy pain that over 2-3 hours moves from the center of your tummy towards the right lower part of your tummy. And that would be very much consistent with an appendix, with an inflammation there. And that's something for which you need to see the hospital. So if you feel that you're trapped inside and things are not working and you can't get out, to seek the help, then this might be a way out, that you need a hospital admission. And then in the hospital, you can talk honestly to a nurse or to a doctor. Hospitals, certainly here in New Zealand, but I know from many other countries, are set up to listen to you. And we know that it is really, really hard sometimes to speak up, but safety needs to come first. So before we go anywhere further, if you're unsafe, please call Women's Refuge or get yourself to a safe place.
Yeah.
Cool. But now back. So that is the hard stuff, but I need to spell it out there, because
absolutely.
too much is happening. And we certainly, I mean, here in New Zealand, we've got one of the huge highest number of family harm. And it is bizarre. It is bizarre. There's such an undercurrent, and it is what it is. And therefore we are talking about it.
Yeah.
Kat, oh, you're an author. Let's start with the nice things. Let's start with something nice because I've already dealt the first hammer blow here and the hard words. But it is nowadays you're an author and you're actually a creative coach. So tell me a bit about
Yes.
your work. What do you do?
So I love to tell stories. I love to write the stories. But I also love to encourage other people to tell their stories. So that's sort of been a journey in itself as I got some healing and was able to actually go out and seek the life that I was supposed to live in the beginning. I really think that sometimes you just need some healing counseling in order to get there. But in 2017, I finally got the confidence to publish my historical novel, which was a big deal to me. You know, I'm one of those women that likes to, not very emotional, likes to hide it a lot, but inside I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? How can I be doing this? Like, no confidence. But I pushed the button and, you know, it's been a journey just trying to learn how to sell it, and that's been 2018, 2019, learning that. But that was just a big moment for me. I continued writing and I came up with a fantasy fiction, and I published that last fall. And I also set up my podcast last fall because I wanted to create a space for other people to tell their stories, especially creative people. I really think that most of us are creative, and many of us who are supposed to make that our job in this world don't do it for so many different reasons. We have to make money, or people think it's silly, or we're all told different things. And so I kind of wanted to give that space to people who are doing it in order to encourage the next generation to do it, or the same age, but we just need some encouragement some days. And then I also came out with an interactive journal because I'm very passionate about people learning to write, which we'll probably go into as we go into my story. And from there, I became more and more passionate about helping people write their story and tell their story. I hear all the time how people want to write a book, and a lot of people never start. And so I wanted to help them start and help them get past the finish line. It might not make you a millionaire, but man, finishing a book, as you know, it's such an accomplishment. You feel so good. If it even helps one person, it makes you feel great. And so I think that's reason enough to do it if you want to.
So true. So true. And there is the creative writing process is such a beautiful thing. It is when you get into it, because to start off with, you are actually allowing yourself to dream and to think.
Yeah.
So you're giving yourself permission to bring that creative child out and let it play and let it come up with ideas. And guys, it's highly addictive. I mean, please, I'm an addict. I know what I'm talking about because you get this idea and you get this imposter syndrome. Who are you? Who are you to write a book? What do you think? And it doesn't matter what it is, if it is a romance or historical novel or a how-to-do book or a memoir. It is, no, your brain will come up with 20 reasons within 5 seconds why you should not write this book. And you actually think, nah, thank you. Oh, that's another good idea. Why not? Oh, yes, I didn't think about that. Now, fuck off. And because move aside. It's like yes. Sometimes I do that in my mind, because if I would do it constantly like that, people would look at me as exactly my imaginary friend. No, I guess the point is the writing is such a beautiful thing. So just as a process, but writing in the sense of healing and as a structured approach to you dealing with something in your life can be very powerful. And I get the sense from you that that was for you from the word go something that you actually did.
Yeah, I'm working on a nonfiction now. So I dealt a lot with my abuse as a child through a fiction book, and that's not out in the world. It was for a little bit, um, which I don't know if I'll ever bring it out. It was definitely, I think it was more of a therapeutic thing for me to write it. It was never well edited. Um, and it caused a bit of a stir in my family because nobody knew at that point. So I
Mm,
had to deny, and, sort of swept it under the rug. That being said, that writing that probably helped me stay alive in college, I think, because it just got some stuff out. So as a therapy, it's absolutely important. I think even journaling, I have stacks and stacks and stacks of journals in which I lie to myself, journals in which I tell the truth. you know um it keeps you as sane as you possibly can, especially if you're like me and you refuse to go get any sort of help. um so I think that it is absolutely necessary, even if you don't feel like you're going crazy or, needing to get something out from your past. I think it's still a good thing to do. I think we'd see fewer Facebook fights if people would just journal.
ooh, now that's nice. That's nice. But then again, now again, that's a completely different story. Let's not go into the Facebook and that thing. At the moment, let's actually look at the therapeutic side of journaling.
Yeah, absolutely.
And most of us, not most of us, no, wrong. 9 billion people on this earth are all the same. That sounds stupid, but it is, because we all hate pain and we seek reward. Full stop.
Yeah.
Now, the hate pain, our brains are actually very, very good in either burying things so that the pain does not become as prevalent as there, to hide things, to reframe things in your mind so that they don't look and sound as bad. So that is all happening on the level of the reptilian brain. So not something that you consciously do, but something that happens deep, deep, deep down in the dark recesses of your brain. There's nothing you can do about it. It does happen right now, right here. What happens when you keep doing that is it's basically like a little pus of a sack of pus somewhere in your body, and it keeps festering and festering and festering.
Yep.
You quite rightly said to talk to someone who actually been there, done that, and maybe can help you and guide you a little bit to recognize what is going on. Well, that is very powerful and beautifully healing. But to actually make the first step and start writing something down, that is the first time that all that shit from the reptilian brain comes up to the cortex, to your conscious brain, where you actually frame it into words and now write it down.
Yeah.
And the moment you have written that sentence down and you look at the sentence, it is as if someone speaks that sentence to you. And you hear it for the first time and you think, wow. And that is the amazing, amazing thing of the journaling. Was that something that you experienced? Is that how you feel about it?
Yeah, I think it helped keep me sane on some times where I could just I wasn't a very good communicator. So we'll say, like, my household growing up was very much don't speak, don't be heard, do it as you're said. And that growing up with an alcoholic, they especially as they come down or they're trying to make them, get themselves clean without actually any help, they just can't handle it, besides the fact that he's a ex-stepfather, but so there's all different sort of scenarios going on in my family there. He had his own pain to deal with that he wasn't dealing with. And so just that environment was a bit suppressive. And so I think I started journaling at like 8 years old. just to sort of find a way out, I think. So I have to say there were sometimes I've gone back and I literally lied. I would lie to almost make it like life is better,
Mm.
knowing something's wrong, but wanting to pretend that it's okay. And then going through and like actually admitting it. And there are times where you write a sentence and you put it away because you cannot handle how truthful it is and you have to step away. And then the only thing I can say there is to just keep going, because as much as it is painful, especially in my journey of somebody who's suppressed a lot, you do get to the point where you really can't feel anything, and that's not living your life. So yes, it might hurt to feel the truth of those words, but that's really the only way that you can get to the point where you feel happiness. And as I journaled, probably early 30s, so like 8 years ago, I'm just not happy. Why am I not happy? I used to be happy. I used to be funny. And realizing as I'm writing these that I don't really feel anything, and being like, oh, that's a problem. I need to fix that. And so I'm not sure I would have realized that had I not written those words over and over, entry after entry, thinking, I see a pattern here. If I want to live a good life, maybe I should figure this out.
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, I find the journaling very, very helpful, and I don't do it nearly enough.
None
But
of us do.
no, exactly. I think it is the Dear Diary has a lot of benefits. So,
Yeah,
but sometimes life gets so busy, and
it
it
does.
is that's right. But guys, just so they're sprinkling the seed here and see if it takes, because it is sometimes just, even if you don't want to have a diary, maybe write a letter to yourself. Maybe make a point once a month, write a letter to that person that you want to be,
Yeah.
and see maybe what comes out of that. It is basically taking stock, taking inventory in your life, to actually stop for a moment, press the pause button, and for a few moments think, where am I? Where do I want to
Right.
be? Isn't it?
Right.
So that's how I see journaling and keeping a record. And may I say, if your life is worth living, I think it's worth recording.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you.
Exactly. So do people often come with sort of, I want to write my memoir, or why do
Yeah.
people want to write things? What do you think?
I think we all have that storytelling in us. Our ancestors used to tell stories all the time. We didn't go to school. Grandma
Mm,
would tell us stories about what crazy
mm,
Uncle Joe did, or how they hunted this thing, and the best storytellers are somebody who could whip the kids into shape, make them scared enough not to wander too far in the forest, but that they would still go get food. Otherwise, you'll die. So I'm talking way ancestors. But it's how we learn, and I think it makes it a little less painful sometimes to read a story or learn about the world, but we also learn things that we want other people to know. And I always tell people it would be so much better to journal it, and to come up with an idea as for your book privately rather than publicly on social media. I think that's what people are trying to do, though. I think they're trying to tell a story, and they don't actually quite know how to do it because we've kind of been dumbed down by our schooling.
um,
I mean, at least here in America, like, we are not taught to critically think. We're not taught to critically write. A lot of people don't write after they leave high school,
mm,
or it's just like, how would you write this day? How would you describe this scene? What do the trees look like? And people are like, green. What? Like, they don't know how to use words.
uh,
Like, I think I read today that people use the same 20 verbs, you know. So we're not encouraged to do that. And people come to me and say they want to write a memoir, and memoirs are great, especially if you've lived a really full life. But I think mostly what people want to write about is something specific about what they've learned in their life, in a specific journey that they've gone through. Like, very few books are made for like saying what you did from being a baby to now. It's very much a journey. Like, the nonfiction I'm writing is very much the journey of like the background of childhood, how not dealing with it affected my life, and then how learning to really sit down, deal with it, and forgive helped me to see life in a whole different way. So that's not everything about my life, but that. So I think that's what people want to say. That's what people want to write when they say, I want to write a memoir. Other people just want to write, what they've learned in business or what they've learned in their creativity. I know a guy who's done drawings for like 800 days in a row. I was like, you should totally write a little book about what was that, how did you do this? How did you start? Because it won't always make you rich, but it's an interesting story. I mean, I just like stories, and I want everyone to write their story.
And especially in the context of the not so nice things in life. Every one of us who has gone through some very painful times, your initial thought is, oh my God, how bad off am I? And it's all me and poor me, poor me, poor me, another one, kind of a thing. So you seem to be focused only on yourself when you come from a level of I'm happy to the level of I'm stressed to the level of I'm distressed. And the higher up you come into this stress, the more you focus only on yourself, etc. So to actually hear someone else's story where you suddenly think, what? Oh my goodness, that happened to you? Wow. So that's one thing that can be very, very beneficial when other people tell their stories.
Yes.
And so if you have a story to tell and you think, should you or should you not? Well, the answer really should be, yes, you should, because so many other people out there could learn from your story.
Yes.
They could see and compare in the first instance. And that is unfortunately something we automatically do. Because you think, what happened to me? Oh, that's the worst ever. And then you hear another story and you think, okay.
Never mind.
Nope. Okay, never mind. Yeah, that's right. Number one. Number two is the other thing to say, there is always this shame and guilt and you want to hide. This hiding is part and parcel of us not wanting to accept that something really painful has happened to us, or that we have created pain ourselves and caused it. When you suddenly read stories of other people who are in exactly the same boat, you realize that we all are sinners, that no one is a saint, that we all have got impure thoughts, that we all have got things that we rather not like to see the light of the day.
Right.
And that is important. This shame, guilt, hiding is the worst thing that you possibly can do if you truly want to heal. Yes. If you just want to wallow in your own pain, then just stay there. You don't need to do anything. That's what your brain does really well. It focuses so much on the, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, look what I did then. And isn't it crazy? I don't know about you, Kat, but I certainly, for a long time, I woke up at 4 o'clock sharp, maybe sometimes 3:55, but around about that time, and my brain played to me things that I've done wrong 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 28 years ago. And you remember exactly, and these are not big things where the universe wants to tell me that I need to go to jail because I killed someone. And it's, no. It is somewhere that I just said a really stupid sentence.
Right.
And I'm embarrassed and mortified about it. And here I am, 30 years later, waking
Right.
up, thinking about that sentence and nearly having a visceral, like someone hits me in the stomach. And
Yeah.
I think, what the hell? Why, brain?
Yeah.
Why do you do that? Because, okay, spoiler alert, you have not dealt with something. There is
Yeah.
something in there where your brain says,
Yeah.
come on, come on, come on. So,
Right.
God,
And it's much deeper than whatever that one thing was,
is it
It's
not?
trying to get you to like, and honestly, like you say, that used to happen to me. And it got to the point where I would almost freeze from speaking because I didn't want to say, I had a really hard time admitting when I was wrong, but I had a really hard time keeping my opinion to myself until I got to the point where I would wake up and say, I couldn't, like the stupidest things, like I heard that it was going to rain tomorrow. They're like, no, oh no, it says that it's not going to. And it's just and I would wake up being like, how can I make them realize that I knew that too? Like just crazy stuff. That's why you think you're going crazy because your brain's like, could you just deal with yourself? And
Exactly.
I'm so happy that it doesn't really bother me anymore.
But
It's
so,
great.
but how did you get there? How did you get there? I mean, you were maybe before we say how did you get there,
Mhm.
because that's really what is all about. What can we learn
Right.
from it? But there was a little bit of something that we sort of kept out of your life so far,
Mm.
which we didn't touch upon because you had not a nice childhood.
No.
And but then you went into the journaling, you created your own fantasy world, probably to a certain
Yep.
degree, in which you lived. And then
Yes.
finally 16, 17, 18, it was time to leave home.
Yeah.
What happened then? What happened when the big wild world suddenly met the new cat?
Oh gosh. I have to say, like, my childhood looked fine from the outside. It was not fine. But, I think like most people from that kind of childhood, you don't really talk about it. You don't really want to tell people about it.
Mm.
That your parents can't handle. And I grew up in the church and I have no, like, I believe in Jesus. I go to church now, but the church is not equipped for issues. And it's unfortunate. If you are an alcoholic, they're all like, go that way.
Mm.
The abuse, like I never said anything about the abuse that went on. So yeah, when I already started dealing a little bit, got my hands on marijuana at 17. And I felt happy, it makes you laugh the first few times. A couple years later, it would paralyze me into terror. So, it's not all fun and games all the way through. So that made me happy for a while. When I got out of my hometown, I went to Chicago, went to art school, was going to study to be a dancer. Um, and I was surrounded by people who just wanted to live and have fun. And that's what I wanted. I just wanted to have fun. But I do have to say, one thing that kind of probably saved me was spending the summers with my grandparents. I adored them. And they were very much of the great generation. They lived through a lot of hard times. And while they didn't really understand a lot of the hard things that I was going through as a child, they did instill in me, like, make something of yourself. And so that was always a desire in the back of my head. So, um, so even as I got, like, all I did, I think that year was party. Don't remember a lot of it. You know, at the same time, I would wake up and think, like, I need to make something of myself. I would go to class. When you're young and you can still do these things, you're like, got 2 hours of sleep and I'm still going to do some pirouettes, and you don't vomit. To be young again. But I injured myself, and I found literally by the end of that 1 year, it's 9 months long, things were already starting to fall apart again. I would stand in the shower wondering if I should slit my wrist, wondering if I should just run away and leave, always being very rational of, I've got $20, where the heck am I going to go? You know? um, and it just like, I have to go home now. Like my ex stepfather was very much ex by that point. He was gone. Um, but things at home weren't that great. And I knew I didn't want to stay. I knew I couldn't stay in my hometown. And so I applied for a scholarship to Northern Ireland and got it because no one else applied for it. 'Cause why would you?
Funny that is.
You know,
Funny that
like,
is.
why do you want to go?
That's like bomb making one-on-one. Yeah, I didn't know there were scholarships for that.
There was peace by that point. You know, this
Okay.
is 2001. Now peace had just come there, and I didn't realize that. So three weeks after the towers went down, I found myself in Northern Ireland, and that was a year that I really realized I probably had depression issues. So I had already sort of therapeutically written my fiction book, but I had not dared to say anything about it because it was kind of just my way of dealing with childhood. And times would go back and forth. I mean, there's very much a pub culture in Northern Ireland. So there's very much like there's some place to go Monday through Sunday, every day. Um, and realizing, you know, that thing of back and forth, like I want to do something with my life. I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. This is fun. I don't know what to do. I can't be a dancer anymore. What am I going to do? Um, and I met my husband there at the last part of the year. And man, he stuck around for some crazy things. I mean, I remember one night, like being in the middle of Belfast and just like having a meltdown because like you said, my brain was trying to get me to deal with stuff and I was not going to do it. And he probably saved me. He was from a very traditional family. He was my man with an accent I declared that I would marry when I was 13. But he saved me in the sense of like, I didn't want to disappoint him, so I cleaned up my act. Um, he was very much not okay with any drugs. You know, we would still go out, like drinking was not that big of a deal, but you know, he would tell me if I got out of hand. And it gets to that point where I'm very lucky that he was like that, I think, because I know. Because there were times in my life where I just didn't care about me, but I did care about what he said or what he thought. Um, but what happens as you go through, and so like living, you know, I went to college, didn't use my degree, but whatever, linguistics, um, moved overseas with him and started a life with him and had kids. And the problem is, as you think that you're okay because you no longer do A, B, or C, you know, the bad things that everyone, you know, I don't smoke marijuana anymore. I don't, you know, I temperate my drinking. I got through pregnancy and breastfeeding. You know, I'm not addicted to that. Well, I was addicted to numbing myself is what I was addicted to. So television, sugar, avoidance, whatever it was, it didn't matter. And it came to a head by the time I had 3 kids and my husband was working long hours. And I thought I was like, there were times that I thought I'm just going to run away. I don't know what to do. Like these same thoughts as that would come up at 18, 19 are now 31, 32, and just being like, I'm a terrible mother. I don't know what I'm doing. I would just react, you know, to be honest, like there were times that I would just scream at like I couldn't handle it. You know, why are you talking? Like, geez, you know, but I see these women now who do the same thing. I was there and I I can't pass judgment on them because what I see is you're so overwhelmed with life and your brain is telling you it doesn't matter that you had discipline to stop drinking or stop doing drugs. You never dealt with your stuff. And so you're dying inside. You're not living your life. You need to figure this out. And thankfully, I got we moved from France to Dallas, and um, I realized I needed help because my middle child is so vivacious and full of life and just so beautiful, but I couldn't handle it. And I realized one day, as she got her stubborn streak from me as she's 5 and looking me in the eyes, she's not going to budge and I'm not going to budge. But that voice in the back of your head, even though you're talking, and that voice in the back of your head, you're kind of is like louder. And it's just like, you're going to ruin her if you don't get your act together.
Nice.
And I
Nice.
realize, just like, you do have the right to sit in your pain, but the saying is true that, hurt people hurt people. Like, end of story. Because you just have this vengeance within you, and you can't take vengeance out on the person. Usually they're past or they're gone. And unfortunately, a lot of times you take it out on who's in front of you and the people that you love the most. So thankfully, I went and got therapy, and it was hard. It was difficult. My husband stuck with me. He's a saint, because as things come out, you're just like a roller coaster all over the place. Some days you're calm, some days you're not. Things you'll start getting triggered. I know that's a word people overuse now, but it's true. Like this Epstein stuff, had I not figured out and dealt with my past, that's the sort of thing that triggers women. And they don't know, Facebook is a horrible place that triggers you, where you'll just be like, I don't know why I'm so stressed out right now, but I need to scream at someone. And it's because all these different things are coming at you, and it's reminding you of past problems, And so I cannot encourage women to go to therapy more, to a good one, and to journal, and the freedom that you find. And I only went for, I think, about a year. The rest of it was doing a lot by myself and just being determined. Like, okay, that's a feeling, and I'm going to sit in that and journal about it. And I would not have been able to come on and talk to people about this even 3 years ago. It would have made my heart stammer, my hands shake. It would have, it would have just, I probably would end the interview in tears or yelling, because women are emotional. And I think the freedom of being able to help somebody by relaying your story, my story, that can only be attained when you've dealt with what happened and learned to forgive, which does not mean condoning at all, but being able to be like, I just don't want it anymore. I don't want it on me. I don't want it around, like this burden of keeping it, just this heaviness. Like, I just want to let go. And that takes a process, but it's so worth it.
So true. So true. That was one of the very first things that my case manager, my counselor, did in rehab. I was 4 weeks inpatient, and soon, I think in the second week, my case manager asked me to write a letter to an institution that I had felt was doing all the wrong in the world and was hurting me and bullying me, which did occur. So she asked me to write that letter, and I went to town. It was the most beautiful letter I would have ever regretted had it become public. But so I wrote this letter, and there I was in the next session ready to go, and I gave it to my case manager. There you go. See what they did to me. Let's and she sort of looked at it and said, that's really good. Folded it, put it aside. Now let's talk about you. But, no. Let's talk about you now. And it is so beautiful. Please, guys, you need to deal with that shit that is so deep inside. And I'm quite excited about this particular interview because my wife always listens to these interviews. And from initially being a bit of a skeptic, probably, and thinking, what interview? And now she's my biggest fan, and I like that. So that's quite nice. But every interview digs up something. Every interview brings something home, brings the lesson home. And that's nice for me to see. It reverberates, obviously, with people like my wife. The fact, of course, is that this cat 3-4 years ago, screaming, crying, being all over the show, uh, letting it out on your husband with the accent.
Yes.
I'm the husband with the accent, okay?
Yes.
My wife has worked at some stages in her life the most stupid hours you could possibly do, 16-hour days and then some. And guess what happened? She comes home and the very first thing, and you think, what the hell?
What did I do?
That's right. That's right. And I said, I didn't do anything. No, but
Yeah.
I love you so much and take it as a sign of my love to you that I can be honest to you. Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you, darling. So it's tricky. It's tricky, guys. So for those of you, it doesn't matter if you're a boy or girl, if you're on the receiving end of such a person, wouldn't it be nice that if that person actually gets guided towards a counselor or a psychologist or a health coach, somewhere where he or she can deal with the underlying shit. And we all have it. We all have it.
We all do. Yeah.
Isn't it? So,
yes, absolutely. And it's not fair really to bring it up to people all the time who aren't educated, I guess, in helping you in some way or shape or form, or who really want to sit and listen and help. There are just some people who don't want to hear about your stuff. And that also has to be respected. And I think that can be irritating when you're not really through the journey yet. You have a lot more understanding once you've gone through some therapy.
So true.
Because you have to learn to have grace for yourself, and then you learn to have grace for others. And it just gives you such a new perspective on other people, and just learning, okay, husband doesn't want to hear all of this right now, and that's okay. I can deal with that. Whereas before it would have been like, well, you're going to hear it. So.
Or why don't you listen to me? Don't you love me? Come on.
Yes.
It's that kind of suddenly the kind of guilt and shame in the husband. But it's also I now speak hand on heart how I often felt. It's like torture to me because I'm a guy who fixes things. I look at a problem, I find a solution, I deal with it. Boom, done. And here I get half an hour. No, I don't want you to fix anything. I want you to listen. And for me, that is, you might as well sit me on hot charcoal. That is for me to actually immediately come up with, oh my God, you really had a shit day. Maybe tomorrow you could do X, Y, and Z. No, it's not about tomorrow. It's about the talking. And it is hard. It's really, 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 really hard. So, and maybe I just want to say that, and that doesn't make me a chauvinistic swine who doesn't want to listen to his wife. It just makes me a human being who feels literally physical pain deep inside my gut because I see my wife in a bad place and I want to go out there and beat the guy up and tell her boss where to go, kind of a thing.
Yes. And
so,
it's not your calling to be a therapist.
That's right.
So it's okay. People are called to different things and we're created to be different things. And at the end of the day, guys want to do something. I mean, my husband told me like it pains him to hear my story when I go into it in detail, usually with women, and there's usually other women in the room where he's just like, it's just, I can't do anything about it and it hurts, and so you have to take that with, 10 years ago, I would have been like, well, deal with your own. How do you think it makes me feel? And when I see that in women, I'm like, I know you haven't dealt with your stuff. Because again, it's a journey that's a lifelong thing, I think, of learning to have mercy on people, on yourself. I call it the living the life of forgiveness, because it's constantly forgiving people for not living up to what you think they should live up to. should you always be able to listen to me whenever I need to talk about this? Well, heck, maybe, but not really. Like, we're all humans, like you said. So,
And that's a beautiful thing, actually. And out of that conflict, once you realize that, then you can find creative ways of dealing with
mhm,
that in a partnership because you're in it for the long run. So I know
right.
my wife wants to offload, and she knows that when my hand is still on the door just opening up, she can't just come in my face and say, blah. There it is. That was my day. So nowadays, we both have learned that I can come home, actually put my back down, kiss her,
And
and
then,
no, kiss her, then take 10 minutes to actually myself calm down, do whatever I need to do. And then I come back down or come back out of the bedroom, etc., and say, darling, how was your day? And then she knows that I can be there for her. But
right.
prior to that, she had no idea if I had a cardiac arrest at work and had to deal with the most atrocious trauma, and I'm befrazzled myself. And she
Yeah.
comes, and it's all her.
Yeah.
So it's quite important, and I want to spell
Yeah.
it out like that. There's nothing wrong with both of our needs. We both have
Yeah.
needs, and but we need to respect each other because we love each other.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
that's the cool thing, because you learn that when you actually start journaling, to actually
Yep.
recognize what's going on, writing things down, then maybe even talk to someone that you can
Yep.
trust, who is not your partner, who is not part of your family, where you don't have to necessarily to mince your words so much, but
Yeah.
also where the other person is not emotionally involved and invested in you. Therefore,
True.
he can be more honest, he can be more impartial, and can
Yep.
actually say, well, yes, what you're saying is all quite right, but you're really behaving like a dick there, aren't you? Or like whatever.
Exactly.
Okay. So
Yes, a good counselor, like your counselor, will always be like, and what are you going to do now?
yeah.
You know, because my counselor would do the same thing of like, well, that's, yes, this happened, but your behavior right now, although, yes, it's connected, to this past, you're still responsible for how you're raising your kids and how you're treating your husband and how you're like loving yourself or not.
Yeah.
And it's like getting smacked in the forehead and being like, oh, I have to take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
A good counselor will not let you just sit there and blame everything on whatever happened that was bad.
Uh-huh.
It's like, yes, you will go through that, you will deal with that, but a lot of it is like, and how did you act and how did you respond? And then you're like, oh.
See, and that is ultimately, that is, if you wanted to translate it into recovery process after drugs or alcohol, it's the step 4 in the AA system, where you basically
Mm,
take an inventory, and initially you do the resentments, the list of fears, or list of anger, etc. You make all
mm-hmm.
these kind of lists. And then after a while, you actually come back to these lists and add another column. So not just, ooh, Joe is a real asshole because he did that, and that's how it made me feel. And then you add this another column there suddenly. Okay, and did you maybe contribute to that? What was your role in that? And suddenly you're actually reflecting and think, ooh, yeah, actually, now that you say that, I had forgotten about that. Ooh.
Yeah, funny enough.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't remember this.
And suddenly it comes back to you that actually there's a damn good reason why Joe was an asshole to you, because you
Yeah,
actually were a real asshole to him, or in general.
right. Right. You
So,
didn't nip it. And I really, when I talk to people about journaling, I've done it a few times of like trying to encourage people to do it and why they should do it. A lot
mm,
of it is for that reason. If you don't have somebody to tell you,
mm,
a lot of times your brain will come full circle and you'll be like, oh, because
mm,
you have to be, yeah, it's possible to lie to yourself, but almost impossible because you still kind of know. Like once you remember, yeah, but I probably shouldn't have said it like that. you know, and even if you don't write it out the first time,
mm,
you still remember it. You still remember, like, okay, I'm not the saint that I was.
mm,
But if you're going to do it for the right purposes and actually write out what's going on, and sometimes now, like, I'll have the other day, like, an anxiety attacking me, like, I have no idea. I don't know. But, like, what was going on, um, quite honestly, a lot of times when I have to wear a mask for a long time, I go into these, like, mini panics, but I know how to handle it, so I think as you're writing it and be like, okay, but I can do that. I can see where that went. I can see where I went wrong, and admitting it in your journal, at least to
mm,
me, who that's how I learned to admit things out loud, that I was wrong sometimes. It's first in my journal.
mm,
And the earth didn't shatter, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm okay, I was wrong. Who And learning, writing
mm,
out my apologies and being like, okay, I can actually do that in real life. It's If you don't have that sounding board, a journal is a really good sounding board,
mm,
and it can help you, if you want to, actually realize where your behavior is wrong, where you can learn more, and how I would actually write out my apologies or what I'm going to say,
mm.
and then memorize it and go say it. And amazingly enough, it's not as hard as you think it is.
Uh, and
you
that's
know?
so true. So true. So, guys out there, so if journal doesn't need to be something fancy. If you
Mm-mm.
want to have a nice book with a hardcover, then that is actually makes sense because I mean, I certainly have got. I haven't got one lying around, but I use hardcover books, so they stack nice on a shelf, basically,
Mm-hmm.
and they typically last for about half a year. Then they are full.
Yep.
So two a year or so works well for me. Um, if you just want to write letters, that's cool. I always advise to actually keep these things. There's some people who
Yeah.
say write something and then burn it or so.
Mm.
And there might be something therapeutic about that. For example, that letter that I wrote to this institution, to literally burn it and
Mm.
celebrate that this is now a thing of the past, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So yes, there can be something therapeutic in that, but at the same token, when you go back half a year, 5 years down the line to read your thoughts about something at that time, and you think,
Yeah.
wow, how far have I come? How have I grown from
Yes.
that? That is a very, very powerful thing.
Yes.
Um, Also, to sometimes we forget the hard places in which we were because something new hard is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the new hard is overshadowing everything and poor me, poor me. And then you go back and you actually say, wow, actually, these were
Actually, things are
brutal.
fine.
Exactly. It puts things into perspective.
Yeah.
And this time it's not the story of someone else, but you compared with your own story that you probably had forgotten a bit because now life has
Yes.
moved on.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so many good reasons to journal. Now you have got an online journal, haven't you? You have got some.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So I do a newsletter every week in which you get one journaling prompt. Um, if it were up to me, I give you one every day, but most people don't want that many emails. But I've done it for over a year, and so I put it all together. So it's 52 prompts plus like 10 bonus, because that's how much I like journaling. And you can find that at my website, katcaldwell.com. It's free. It's completely free. I think sometimes it's hard to know where to start. And I was definitely in the place sometimes where I had suppressed so much,
Mm,
um, that I really felt like I had nothing to say and nothing to tell about. Like, this is my day. Like, and it's such a lie. It's one of those other lies your brain
mm,
tells you. And like, you do have opinions, you do have thoughts, you do have things to tell. But I would pick up my pen and my book, and I would just stare at the page and think, I don't want to complain anymore. I
uh,
but like, what do I have to say? And so I really try to make them like, um,
mm,
be some are fun, um like, if your life was a television show, what would it be? What character would you be? Who would the people around you be?
mm,
Just something fun to just write. Other times it's like, what was the last thing that genuinely made you sad, and what was your reaction to it? And do you think it was actually that thing or something else in the past that triggered an emotion? So
Nice.
they vary,
Nice.
because I want people to write, but I do understand sometimes it's hard to know where to start.
Hmm.
So that's definitely,
Hmm.
even if you do it weekly, you got one per week, you're good for a year.
So true. So true. And that's really, really good, because that is to address the many, many individual things that maybe don't fit so well, let's say into a recovery process or into things like that. You might listen to that because you are actually dealing with PTSD or dealing with family harm, etc. So the alcohol might not be such a big thing. So to go specific into alcohol journals, etc., might not make so much sense. But this journal of Kat might just be exactly what you need. On the flip side, you might listen to that because you are affected by alcohol, or a loved one is really in a deep, dark alcohol hazy hole. Well, by the time this talk is being broadcast, I will have my workbook out there published. It is a hardcover book that you physically can purchase, and it is essentially exercises that help you to go through the 12 steps, and where you can shed light onto things. It starts off with the most important task. It starts off with a lot of blank pages in which I want you to write down in minute detail the person that you want to be when you grow up. Who is this person?
For everyone to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's brilliant.
So start with that. Who do you want to be? As careful and as minute as you can. And then we go, okay, cool. So that's what you want to be. And then let's have a little look right now at your alcohol. So there are a few questions there where we can, where you can be honest and look at your own alcohol consumption and how you fit into labels, so to speak, out there. And then we're going to go through the steps, and I give you exercises, and you can actually work through. And this is not to somehow get you out of meeting someone and actually talking about what is going on. This is not a replacement for a counselor or for meetings or for a health coach. This is something like homework for you that you can sit down and get a first inkling about what's actually happening in your brain. So this is to put it down, and suddenly it is written, and you think, wow, that's really, oh goodness. And then maybe you can sit down with your mentor, with your sponsor, and actually say, maybe today, shall we work on step 3? Because have a look here, this is what I've written, and it makes it so much more powerful, easy, etc., for the person who wants to help you, rather than to start from scratch. And you know, so these kind of things are so important and so powerful, empowering. So Kat's journal, my workbook. So guys, just go out there. Just give it a shot and pick up both, pick up one, pick the other. I will probably, not probably, Kat, I will actually get your journal. And because I'm intrigued now, because it is a journey. It is a journey. There's no doubt. And I think I've got my ducks in a row at the moment. I think my shit is pretty sorted. I betcha, when I go through some of the exercises in your book, I will suddenly think, interesting. And new things will come out. And welcome to my world. We are all like that. We all have shit buried.
It's a continual journey.
Well, exactly.
Sure.
So,
and that's how you keep living.
Indeed. And the cool thing is, it is a journey where we always have choices. Every single day, every single hour, every single minute, you have the choice to change that story. Once upon a time, that all has been written. The past
Yeah.
is there, but now we're coming to a point where you actually have to say, well, hang on, I write the
Yes.
ending of that story, okay?
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes. The
oh,
beginning, the past doesn't have to be the ending.
no,
And it's unfortunate that a lot of people choose to just let it continue.
no.
But you don't have to. You don't have to let that be the end of your life, the let it be the same. You don't have to continue a generation of alcoholism or abuse. You can be the one that stops it,
Absolutely.
you know?
And how beautiful is that?
Yeah.
And that is exactly the argument against focusing too much on genetics of alcoholism and genetics of certain mental health problems. Yes, the whole generations before you were doing that, but you are so much more powerful because you
Yes.
now have got the insight. You're living in a time when you can listen to a podcast like that or watch a YouTube channel and look Kat in the eyes and say, actually, if she got her shit together, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe I've got a chance. And if a numbnut like me can turn his life around, come on, guys, you can do it. Honestly,
Exactly. Yeah, I think we got to give hope to people, Yeah,
exactly,
you can do it, and you're not too old and you're not too young, and it's not too late ever.
exactly. Ever. Okay. No, brilliant. Oh, Kat, you're gorgeous. You are. No, it was so lovely to have you on my show. You're such a breath of fresh air. And so thank you so much for
Oh, you're
being
welcome.
here, for sharing all this honesty with me. And
Yeah.
I'm humbled and I'm really, really, really grateful that you came onto my show today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love it when we can collaborate across the oceans. If we can even get one person to decide to make their life a little bit better and the people around, I think that's so worth it. So worth it.
Indeed. And you guys out there, look after yourself, make those little choices, change those little habits, and suddenly we all can work together and make this world a little bit of a better place. Look after yourself. Bye.
Dream on,